Greetings, school year program facilitators. This is the March 6th lesson plan for public speaking. Once again, this is the school year program schedule for 7th grade. Session 1 will be social emotional learning, followed by public speaking. For 8th grade, session 1 will be public speaking, followed by social emotional learning. Today, the topics will be coping skills for SEL and advocacy speech structures for public speaking. The public speaking lesson plan, the guiding question for March the 6th is how can one communicate passionately and clearly about a current controversial subject that impacts their life and the lives of others. What we want to do is, as students are navigating re-entering into learning environments, especially with returning to school during the summer or currently during the spring semester, there are lots of topics that they will have to unlayer, understand their emotions, and be able to, and willing and confident enough to advocate for themselves on any topic where they feel very passionate about and they feel that they can actually make a change. During the SEL lesson today, they're going to learn how to cope. There's a lot of depression, anxiety, a sense of overwhelmness that our students are experiencing now. That is just due to the pandemic and the current climate of, other issues. We want them to be able to cope and release their frustration so that when they actually are advocating for themselves, they can do it professionally and effectively. The academic vocabulary today is academic speech, and once again, that is simply to communicate passionately about something that is controversial, that will impact you, yourself, and others in the society. The purpose is to understand advocacy speech. We want students to be able to understand what it means to eloquently. For the purpose of this video, I will review the Google Slides, which will include all components of the lesson plan cycle. Again, these are additional resources that students and teachers you can use in order to create a student-centered environment and promote an open dialogue. So this is the public speaking presentation. Again, we are focusing on advocacy speech structure. So the previous public speaking lesson was focused on how to speak confidently. And now we're going to marry that with speaking confidently about issues that really matter and can make a difference. Once again, this is your guiding question in academic vocabulary. And the first thing students will do is the do now. The question is, what topics related to school or the greater community has been of your concern? In what ways can you use your voice to shine a light on the topic or issue? So these various topics can be things like related to virtual learning in a pandemic environment or society, returning to school, COVID, recommendations or COVID concerns with reentry school models, mask mandates or states that are lifting mask mandates, additional information or topics that may be of issue to even students, stimulus package, how does that look, or when are families getting relief? So you'll be surprised what topics are really of concern for our students. Then students will participate or complete a hook. So this is a video clip of advocacy example of Cleo and Sophia. They are two middle school students in, a California school district, but they're going to discuss the importance of arts education. This is an example we're using the practicespace.org's resource on advocacy, and this is an example that they provided. These two girls do a wonderful job at exemplifying what it means to advocate for something that they feel passionate about. After students watch this video clip, please have them discuss these following discussion prompts. What immediately stood out while listening to their speech? What key information did they include in their speech? And was their message effective? So again, this is about a 5-minute video clip, and they are really honing in with data to support their notion that arts integration is very vital to the success of a student. A holistic approach is super important, whether students are in charter schools, public schools, or independent schools. And so you will find this piece to be really enjoyable as you hear students eloquently speak out for what they know and what they feel is right.
Whereas
the next portion of the lesson will be building the skill. You're going to review strategies on how to improve conditions for self-advocacy and advocacy for others. So these are just, I would say, components or characteristics of exemplifying effective advocacy speech. These are suggestions intended to help students and individuals cross off checkpoints to make sure that they have a coherent message. You can ask students to tailor it or adapt it in order to fit their needs. So it is not a blueprint that has to be followed to the T. It is very flexible and adaptable, a model that students can follow. So when actually creating an advocacy speech, please review common elements of advocacy, which are attention and relevance, establishing why the problem is relevant to the audience, a need, use evidence to show why this issue is a broader societal issue and not just a need for one, satisfaction, showing how you satisfy this need with feasible and credible solutions. So it is an actual feasible way to provide a solution to this issue. And then visualization, it's probably cut off, you can't see, but visualization is the fourth element, which is using language and stories to help your audience visualize the positive results. So captivating the audience so that they can be actually willing to engage and support you in your cause. Building the skill. So some common structures within building the skill. Advocacy speeches are all about contrast, which is comparing the undesirable reality with what the actual desirable outcome will be, which involves communicating the problem and the solution. So your speech is likely to be structured in these examples. So you can have a common advocacy structure is type 1, which is the problem solution strategy. Type 2, problem. Then you have a failed solution and then a proposed new solution. And then type 3, cause and effect with solution action. Outline the concrete steps that will or should be taken. So these are actual structures that students can choose. So for example, if the problem is that the students are finding that they are being penalized for not having on uniforms, the solution might be to look at a uniform policy that is flexible, that students feel that their uniqueness is shown, but they also can be in compliance with whatever the school policy is. So that's an example of what we want to hear our students articulating in various advocacy speech structures. So the investigate part, they're going to actually create a self-advocacy example. So sometimes the topic is things that hit personally or close to home. And these are 6 steps basically, or checkpoints that students can use when they're writing their advocacy example in order to create a speech that is compelling to the audience and helps advocate for their needs and get people basically on their side. So number 1 is one sentence that they can just simply describe what they need in the world and what you personally need to feel safe participating in the conversation. So making the conversation open, candid, and people, a sentence that kind of grabs the audience's attention, what the world needs and what we personally can do to make the world better. Number 2, describe the need and why it's important to you. why this important hits home to that individual. Tell a story about when that need was not fulfilled and the effects that it had. It's always great to have students learn how to create a story. The art of storytelling, which was their first public speaking lesson, can help others see what a person went through and how it made them feel in order to have people sympathize and empathize with them. 4, describe an alternative reality and what you would have rather happen instead of that actual situation that happened. 5, explain the need and why it's important to a particular context or situation. And then 6, conclude by telling the audience what they should consider moving forward to best serve this need for you. Once you go over those steps, students will actually complete the investigate portion where they're going to use that template to create a self-advocacy example using a real-world situation. They can write it out and practice it. Some of them may want to share out with the class, which is super exciting. And this activity, again, can be completed in a whole group, small group, or individual format. And the exit ticket, again, is just discussing self-advocacy examples and actually reviewing ways to advocate in speech. And that is the conclusion of the public speaking lesson on self-advocacy structures.